Hi, this is Craig Brailsford with Redchip Companies. Thank you for joining today's event with Nova Minerals, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker NVA. With us today, we have Christopher Gertyson, Executive Director and CEO of Nova Minerals. We will begin with a brief presentation in a moment, but before we begin, please allow me to read the Safe Harbor Statement. This call may contain forward-looking statements within the meaning of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. All statements pertaining to future financial and/or operating results, along with other statements about the future expectations, beliefs, goals, plans, or prospects expressed by management, constitute forward-looking statements. Any statements that are not historical fact should also be considered forward-looking statements. Of course, forward-looking statements involve risks and uncertainties. Chris Gertyson is waiting for us up in Alaska. Chris, take it from here.
Hi, Christopher Gertyson here, CEO and Director of Nova Minerals. And I'm standing here at the Estelle Gold and Critical Minerals Project. We've just concluded a very successful 2026 winter road heavy freight haul season, which has just been a success by any measure. We've hauled in over 800 tons of various mining and processing equipment, which you see behind me. This provides us everything we need to continue to execute on this plan that is being supported by the Department of War, the U.S. Department of War, with $43 million to establish domestic antimony production. And Nova Minerals has really been at the center of that, and we are executing. Behind me, you can see various pieces of mining equipment, including rock trucks, haul trucks, various sizes of excavators, a few different dozers, bulldozers. Further on, then we get into some of the processing equipment, including crushers, screeners, that not only allows us to crush the ore, but also to produce aggregate for road base to be able to support the project, keep our trails maintained. In addition to that, structural steel for the process plant here on site, a heavy-duty compressor unit that's required for the ore sorter, 500 kilowatt generator, secondary crushers, numerous conveyor systems, and some other support equipment, including a roller and a grader. This is just one of our laydown areas for some of the heavier equipment, and this is the area where we'll actually be constructing the ore sorter back in here in this open area and beyond once we begin that. It's currently breakup here in Alaska, snow's melting, so another couple of weeks of this kind of wet conditions, and we'll really begin to ramp things up. The teams are already arriving as we speak, not only for the ore sorting and the antimony project, but just for this year's drilling and exploration season. We have additional laydown areas with smaller equipment, including drill and blast equipment, various smaller items, more fuel tanks, and everything that's required to support this project. So we're really on track. We're ahead of schedule and on budget to be able to deliver military-grade antimony trisulfide production this year or early in the next year. And so with that, let's go down to the camp, and I'll tell you a bit more about where we're at with the antimony project. So with the antimony project, what we'll be doing is on site here, we'll of course be going to the Stibium and the Styx antimony deposit areas, and we'll be extracting the ore, and we'll be bringing it down here to the camp. And what we're doing the early stage processing here at camp, and what that entails is ore sorting. So we'll be crushing it and screening it and concentrating it with our ore sorters. And what the ore sorter does is it gives us a 3 to 5 time upgrade. So if we can mine the ore at, say, 5% out of the ground and bring it to the ore sorter and process it, we can upgrade that to 15 to 25%. And then that material, that coarse concentrate, will then be transported to Port McKenzie, where we'll do all the downstream processing. All the equipment has been procured for what we want to do at Whiskey Bravo. It's all here. And now We've already procured, and it's been delivered here to Whiskey Bravo, and we've already procured the processing equipment for the downstream process that'll be at Port McKenzie, and that material is en route to be at Port McKenzie later this month, later in May, early June, to begin to construct that process plant down there as well, to be able to refine the material to make that end user product of high grade military antimony trisulfide. So I just want to, we'll just stop here at this location in the camp. I'll show you a bit of antimony. Remember, our antimony prospects contain high-grade, massive stibnite veining on the surface. And already last year, we began to collect this just manually off the surface, this material. And as you can see, here's an example. As you can see, very high-grade, massive stibnite here, which is the primary ore mineral for antimony, of course. And we've collected already almost 40 tons just off the surface. Now we're going to mechanize that operation and be able to scale that up substantially with how much of this material that we can extract and bring down here to camp and to begin to process with our ore sorting plant. So, and that's what we're doing here on the site. Mining it, ore sorting it, and then it'll go to Port McKenzie for the downstream military grade antimony trisulfide refining. So with that, let me give you a bit of an exploration and update on the gold project at our office, at our geology office. So we'll just go over there. So it's been such a successful winter freight haul season, and I just really want to thank our team. A lot of these members of our team have been on this project with us since the very beginning over the last 6 or 7 years. The project has really come a long way over the last 6 or 7 years. It was a greenfields project, and we brought it to this stage where we now have a fully winterized 80-man camp, and now we have all the equipment required to actually become a producer of antimony with the support of the Department of War. And we really want to be successful at this project because it's really phase one of the antimony project, where our objective initially here in phase one is to produce military grade antimony trisulfide. And being successful at that allows us then to potentially move on to phase two, where we'll be scaling things up from there, and not only producing military grade antimony trisulfide, but also some of the other refined products like antimony metal, antimony trioxide, and some of these other products that are not only used by the Department of War and for munitions, but for the entire U.S. industrial base. Antimony is such a strategic metal that is just used in semiconductors, batteries. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So here we are at our geology office, and I'll give you a bit of an exploration update, and we'll talk a bit about the gold project. Come on in. So we recently, this last quarter, released some exploration results, and most recently those were from Portage Pass and some from RPM. So the most recent one from Portage Pass, another gold mineralized zone starting to develop there. It's proximal to the Corbel mineralized system. And so at a minimum, we see another Corbel developing there at Portage Pass. So that's very exciting. Bulk tonnage of gold systems we tend to have up there. And then also we released a news release on results from West Wing. And what's taking shape at West Wing is very exciting. I mean, we have an anomaly, a strike length of several kilometers there, and this potentially hosts a porphyry copper style deposit here at West Wing. And we're still testing that potential, but certainly the gold is there in the center of the project area. And then also we had some results from RPM, and at RPM mainly, I'll just take you over to this map. This is a zoom in of RPM, and we released additional results from along the RPM ridgeline here. This is the deposit area, and to the north along that ridgeline, we have several anomalies that are starting to take shape, both in the surface sampling as well in some of the geophysics that we've done. And so those are drill-ready targets, and we're feeling hopeful that another RPM North high-grade bonanza type zone and deposit can be intersected there in those anomalies just north of RPM. With the gold project, we're currently driving towards a pre-feasibility study and doing everything that we can. There's a lot of technical studies, metallurgical test work, environmental test work, and these type of studies required that we're in the midst of currently to complete that pre-feasibility study. Another round of drilling this year that we have planned. Most of the drilling this year will be taking place for the gold at RPM. About 95% of the drill budget, I would say, we're still in the planning stages, but I would say will be taking place at RPM, the deposit there, to continue to prove that up and move those resources into the measured and indicated categories, which of course we want to do because then those can be converted into reserves, which will make our PFS a much more robust economic study. So most of our drilling this year will be focused there at RPM, and then of course, as part of the Department of War grant, the Antimony project, we'll be conducting some drilling at the antimony prospects, and Stibium, this map here, would be one of the main targets for that. And so to understand, because the stibnite and the antimony mineralization is right on surface, we can begin production right away as soon as we establish this plant, and we have all the materials we need to do that. So we'll be producing before we actually establish a resource. But concurrently this summer, we'll be drilling these antimony prospects to develop and estimate a resource as we move forward for longer term planning and to be able to sustain production. But certainly we have already, right on the surface, we already see enough antimony there to give us confidence that we'll be able to commence production very soon in terms of the military grade antimony trisulfide. And so that's a bit of a quarterly update. And there's one last note that we'd like to make. It's quite an exciting time for the company as we transition now into becoming an antimony producer here over the course of this year. And we continue to work on our pre-feasibility study on the gold and have one of the largest and biggest field seasons planned yet at the Estelle project, both in terms of antimony and gold. And corporately, what we're currently in the process of doing is redomiciling the company to the United States. And so there's some important things to note in terms of the redomicile for investors to be aware of. Nova Minerals intends to redomicile the U.S. following the loss of its foreign private issuer status due to a majority of its share registry now being held by U.S. investors. The scheme booklet contains information for security holders about the schemes, important dates, and the different ways shareholders and warrant holders can vote on the schemes. Security holders can find more information about the redomiciliation in the scheme booklet to assist them in deciding how they will vote. The booklet can be accessed through the ASX website. Nova Minerals filed the scheme booklet on ASX to comply with applicable Australian law and ASX listing rules. I wanted to note that under the scheme, certain shareholders will be classified as ineligible foreign holders based on address or foreign law restrictions, and those holding less than 500 Australian dollars worth of shares will be classified as small parcel holders. These holders will not receive CDIs directly. Instead, their entitlements will be sold via a sale agent on market, with net proceeds returned after applicable deductions. Small parcel holders may opt out of the sale facility and retain their holding by following the instructions in the scheme booklet. While the scheme booklet contains a timetable for security holders, I would like to note that the scheme meetings to approve the schemes will be held on Friday, the 29th of May, 2026 at 10 a.m. Sydney, Australia time for shareholders, and at 10:30 a.m. Sydney time for warrant holders. These meetings will be held both in person in Sydney and virtually. For more information, please refer to the scheme booklet filed by Nova Minerals on ASX to comply with applicable Australian law and ASX listing rules. Thanks for joining us for this quarterly update. It's an exciting time for Nova. With the 2026 field season ramping up now, I look forward to providing further updates.
Thank you, Chris. For more information on Nova Minerals, reach us at 1-800-REDCHIP or email us at nva@redchip.com. Please visit the information page created by Redchip for Nova Minerals. It's nvainfo.com. There, you can view and download the investor presentation and fact sheet and sign up for news alerts on Nova Minerals. That does it for today's webinar with Nova Minerals. Thanks to our many participants today, and thank you, Chris.